Hello and welcome in for another episode of Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. If you are joining me here today on YouTube, I really appreciate it. Make sure you throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment here, give me some feedback on my takes. Let me know what you think about some of these series that we saw over this past weekend. We're going to be diving right into it because an action-packed NBA playoff weekend. We're going to get into some of the main storyline, go through some of these playoff series that we had. So we're going to start getting right into it with the LA Lakers and Houston Rockets series. Going through that, the Lakers take a 3-1 lead over the Houston Rockets, much to a lot of our surprise, much to my surprise. I anticipated, as we talked about in our NBA pick show, that the Houston Rockets were going to kind of have their way with the Lakers, particularly at home, particularly anticipating that Kevin Durant was going to be playing. We haven't seen a whole ton of Kevin Durant in this series. So that one's just been super weird, crazy compared to what we thought. And then I don't think even the staunchest LeBron fans and supporters and necessarily anticipated that he was going to turn back the clock like he has in this series and look the way that he has. Absolutely spectacular throughout the course of the weekend. And getting these vintage LeBron James performances, I know that they lost last night, but that felt like a game in which the Lakers went in, got their 3 games. They need to go back to LA to win one more. You're never trying to lose a game for positioning and timing of another series, but this was not the worst game in the world to lose. Give yourself a couple more days, go back to LA to hopefully close it out. Give Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, those guys a little bit more time to hopefully come back, particularly anticipating that Oklahoma City is going to close it out against the Phoenix Suns tonight. Give yourself a little bit more time before that second round series starts. Try to get yourself a little bit closer to full strength before having to go down to Oklahoma City and face that juggernaut where you're probably going to lose those early games anyway, while guys like Reeves and Doncic get back into rhythm. So even with that, just incredible stuff from LeBron. And this weekend just made me think of how incredible LeBron has been. You know, he has been doing this since his first playoff performance was before the first iPhone was released, and he is still doing this here at age 41 in year 23, still looking like, honestly, like a top 10, arguably a top 5 in these playoffs at least, maybe not in the league, but in these playoffs that we've seen, top 5 player in the league, which is just absolutely incredible. And I was kind of doing some research, as the internet is after LeBron goes off in one of these crazy games like he did in Game 3. The internet just gets flooded with all the new LeBron stats that he is now the oldest player to do X, Y, Z, and then you see all the comparison stuff. A lot of really good stats floating out there, and a couple that I grabbed that I want to talk about here today. These are 3 LeBron stats that will blow your mind, are just absolutely insane, and here in year 41, the Kings still getting it done. This, in my opinion, are some things that just as time goes on, time will be much friendlier to LeBron than a lot of current critics are and things like that. I think we will look back and recognize his greatness, recognize that he was the GOAT of all time and absolutely the best of our generation. And just like how my grandpa still defends the days of Bill Russell is the best player of all time, you can't convince him that Michael Jordan is better, you can't convince him that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is better, you can't convince him that LeBron is better. I think with time we're going to see some of these MJ lovers phase out, and I think LeBron is going to kind of take that place as the overwhelming overall GOAT in people's minds. And so here are 3 overall crazy LeBron stats that are just going to kind of blow your mind that I was going through. Number 1 is the gap between LeBron and number 2 MJ in the all-time playoff scoring list is bigger than the gap between MJ at 2 and Wilt Chamberlain at 22. Wilt Chamberlain, the guy that averaged 50 points for a season. That's how big the gap is between LeBron and the next guy in playoff scoring after this weekend, after last night's game, which is just pretty insane. We have now seen LeBron win more playoff games without Luka and without Austin Reeves, and so essentially with a team of Luke Kennard, DeAndre Ayton, Marcus Smart, we've seen LeBron win more games in the playoffs with that roster than we've seen Michael Jordan in the past win a game in the playoffs without Scottie Pippen, which is pretty remarkable, pretty insane. I know it's a little nitpicking because Scottie Pippen was there for so long with Michael Jordan, but even still, just an insane stat. And that gap, Scottie Pippen is 20th. The gap between LeBron and MJ in playoff scoring is even bigger than the gap between MJ and Scottie Pippen. So just an insane stat that is. Stat number 2, since turning 40, LeBron's playoff career average is more than Kareem, Shaq, Dr. J, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Dwayne Wade, Moses Malone. Since turning 40, LeBron averages more than those guys averaged for their careers, which is pretty insane. Just, again, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. This is like Tom Brady playing basketball, but the difference between football and basketball is that obviously you got to play the defensive side. So this is like Tom Brady doing what he did for the Tampa Bay Bucks, but then also being out there on the defensive end, making critical stops, key in late games, like we saw LeBron in Game 3 against Reed Shepherd, leading to his game-tying 3. So just insane stuff, unlike anything we've ever seen. Number 3 is that LeBron has more closeout playoff game wins than anybody in NBA history, and 11 more than Michael Jordan on a much higher percentage in those closeout games. LeBron is 41-13 in those games with a 76% win percentage. Michael Jordan 30-13 in closeout games with a 70% win percentage. Obviously still good, still in that top 10 for Michael Jordan, but LeBron in the top 2. The only person higher than LeBron is Derek Fisher, oddly enough, with a minimum of at least 25 playoff games. But you go down this list, LeBron James, Derek Fisher, Robert Horry, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Tim Duncan. LeBron is at the top of the list, and he is doing it while averaging 28, 9, and 7 in those closeout games, which is just an absurd stat to hit. He is as clutch as it gets. It kind of crushes the clutch narrative that has been surrounding LeBron. And for him to still be doing this at 41, for him to still be putting the Lakers in a position to win a playoff series and potentially play spoiler to the reigning champs is just remarkable. Another feather in his cap. There has never been a greater player to grace the NBA basketball court, and we are super lucky and should appreciate every moment that we get to watch LeBron James out there on the court. So really fun. Obviously all the fun stuff of getting to watch LeBron throw the lob to Bronny, first father-son playoff assist in NBA history, and just really cool. Bronny, by the way, just shout out to him, playing fantastic, given the minutes that he's given. So much talk about it. He's a nepotism pick, all of these things. He doesn't deserve to be in the league. He's taking away a spot from a more deserving player when he got drafted in 2024. We are now seeing Bronny not playing all sorts of minutes, not playing 20 minutes a game, but starting to get a little bit of playoff run, playing 9 minutes in Game 3, had a little bit of action last night in Sunday's game, scored 5 points in Game 3, has shown a knack for defense, has shown a good defensive ability so far in his time. And essentially, for all those that want to call it nepotism, just take a look at the guys that were picked around him. And if you haven't, I can do it for you. If you just take a look at pick 52 through 58, Bronny was picked 55 to the Lakers in the second round, 5th to last pick. And if you just look around him, the Warriors at 52 took Quentin Post. Not a bad player, has had some action with the Warriors, looks pretty solid. Pistons drafted Cam Spencer, traded to the Grizzlies. Cam Spencer has shown some things. He's had some decent NBA run. Celtics draft Anton Watson, a Gonzaga guy. I'm here in Spokane, Washington. We love Anton Watson. Has not had a great opportunity in the NBA. I believe he's now with the Knicks, maybe in the G League there. Again, another great player from this area here in Spokane that I live, but is not seeing a ton of NBA action so far in his career. And Bronny has probably had a better NBA career thus far than Anton Watson. Then you go through and the Suns draft Kevin McCullough Jr. from Kansas. I haven't heard much of Kevin McCullough. You had Grizzlies taking Ulrich Chomchi. I haven't heard much of Ulrich Chomchi. I know he's done a few things, but again, I think Bronny James is comparable to him there. Then you have Ariel Huckporty. You guys get the point. Have you guys heard of many of those guys? Are they making big impacts here in the playoffs? No, they have not been. And so Bronny James is absolutely drafted where he should have been, and I was actually going through the first 2 rounds. If you really take a look at it all, you could argue that Bronny James is a first-round pick in 2024 if we were to do a redraft right now. And so just a shout-out to Bronny. Lots of Lakers LeBron love here this morning, but I just couldn't help it. I thought this was a really cool weekend. for us with those two, and with Bron just throwing back the clock. I think the Lakers are now going to go back home, close it out in 5. I've now spent about 10 minutes ranting on the Lakers and Bronny when we only got about 10 more minutes. So I'm going to kind of fly through the rest of the show here, but just shout out to the Lakers. A lot of fun throwing back the clock for us. So going through the rest of the weekend, crazy games, crazy stretches. We'll jump right over to the Timberwolves real quick. Also going up 3-1 in their series. They're now going back to Denver for Game 5. Weird part for the Timberwolves is that they have controlled this series pretty much from start to finish. They kind of have a stranglehold on it. Jokic is really struggling. Jokic is, I think, starting to fall off the radar for many people of the best player on the planet. I think he kind of held that title the last handful of years. And I think that is very much now in question watching this playoff series. But now the Timberwolves have no Anthony Edwards and no Dante DiVincenzo for at least the rest of the series. DiVincenzo is definitely out for the rest of this playoff series with his torn Achilles. And Ant is likely to miss the rest of this series and arguably probably start of the next series, if not all of the next series, if the Timberwolves are to advance. So really tough situation there. I think that Nikola Jokic, if he doesn't want to let that best player in the world title slip through his fingers, I think he has to do something heroic here in this series, coming back from 3-1 down, even without Ant Edwards, even without Dante DiVincenzo. That would still be a feat that would still keep him in contention, particularly if he can play extremely well, play to the standard that we expect from Jokic here in the playoffs. So if we can see that, and then we can see another deep playoff run, maybe a finals appearance, taking down Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals, then I think Jokic is going to hang on to that best player in the world title. But if he doesn't, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is nipping at his heels, is coming to take that title from him, coming to take that crown. I mean, Shai obviously playing for the juggernaut Thunder. You can't argue that the team's success is there for him, obviously winning last year's championship and finals MVP as well as regular season MVP, looking like he's in store to win another regular season MVP here. And if he can win an MVP, a second title, second finals MVP, back-to-back years, be the first guy in this era to win 2 championships, I think that you have to give, say, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander the title of best player in the league, best player in the world. I think he is looking to take that crown from Jokic, and right now that is very much in question, very much looking like that best player title is going to be moving to someone else here, given the way that Jokic and the Nuggets have played. So really crazy stuff. We'll see what happens there. Ayo Dosunmu going for 43 points in that Game 4 to put the Timberwolves up 3-1 after coming back against the Nuggets. Again, Jokic, again, numbers are okay. Shooting percentage is way down, and you can just tell that he is forcing things, does not look like himself. Really struggling to find a rhythm here through the first 4 games of that series. So we'll see if he's got something magical in him. We'll see if he's got a playoff title run, but we'll see. It's going to be tough the way that the Spurs are playing. Even if they are able to pull this off against the Timberwolves, it's going to be tough against the Spurs. But then again, NBA playoffs is all matchups. Denver does not match up particularly well with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We've seen them match up much better against the San Antonio Spurs. So a lot to still be determined as we go here. My Nuggets NBA championship futures pick is already very much in question. Does not look good. Has me sweating it out a little bit, but I'm going to keep riding with the Nuggets now with Ant going down, which is really a bummer. Really sucks. And we're hoping to get him back to full strength, start to see him. He had shown some moments here in the playoffs, but still coming back from that knee injury, just hasn't quite looked like himself, and now hyperextending it on kind of a weird, freaky play, contesting a shot against Cam Johnson. Really stinks to see him sidelines. Hopefully it's okay. Hopefully it's something he's able to come back from relatively soon, and we can see him back out there on the court. But I don't see him out there for the rest of this series against the Nuggets, which really sucks, but does open the door for Denver to do something a little crazy, come back from 3-1. If they can get this game, I anticipate them routing Minnesota here in Denver in Game 5. And then that Game 6 is really going to determine the series. In my opinion, if Minnesota can close it out shorthanded at home, you see what that team looks like. That defense is just a juggernaut coming in waves like a buzzsaw at you when they're at home. So that's what's going to be waiting for the Nuggets when they go back to Minnesota. We'll see what they can do at home, and we'll see how the Timberwolves respond, assuming a Game 5 loss. So A couple more that we'll just kind of go through. Cavs Raptors are now tied up 2-2. Who would have thought my Raptors pick from the beginning from my predictions show to win that series is now all of a sudden has some life. Raptors really ratchet up the defense. We're starting to see Scotty Barnes kind of coming into his own, making a name for himself here in this playoff run. As we always say, I think that one's going 7 because I do think, like we say, the role players play so much better at home in these playoff series, and you saw that from Toronto in this one. Now you're going back to Cleveland, where I anticipate their role players are going to play much better. James Harden and Donovan Mitchell have just been kind of in handcuffs against the Raptors perimeter defenders. So really, really struggling against them. And let me go pull up those stats real quick for you guys. In the series, Mitchell and Harden in the last 2 games, so those 2 games up in Toronto, 72 points and 36% shooting, 24 of 67 from the field. So you're getting 72 points on 67 shots between the two of them up there in Toronto, which obviously if you're the Cavs, you're not going to win many games. And then when the role players also don't step up, offer a whole ton, you're just not going to find yourself winning very many of those games for the Cavs. So you have that series getting tied up. That's getting super interesting. Thunder go up 3-0 over the Suns. We'll see what happens tonight if they can complete that sweep. Lou Dort, is he ever going to stop kicking people? Is he ever going to stop doing dirty crap? And is the league maybe going to take a look if he does something even remotely similar here in any of the games coming up? Could we see a Lou Dort suspension looming at some point? Which, if you're a Lakers fan, you would hoping that he can kind of keep himself under control for Game 4 and maybe throw a swinging leg at somebody in Game 1 and get a suspension and give yourself a chance to maybe steal one if you go to Oklahoma City if they were to lose him and if J-Dub were still to be out at that point. So Thunder go up, Spurs go up 3-1 against the Blazers. Wemby back, Wemby's playing great. Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper have now really started to emerge. They are looking like they are well ahead of schedule in San Antonio. I know it's first round, I know it's Portland, but they're starting to gel. They're starting to look like they're getting ahead of steam. Is it just kind of a collision course that we're waiting for between Oklahoma City and San Antonio in the West? We shall see. And then the Knicks tied up with the Hawks. I did not have a great chance to watch that game. We were helping some family members move out here, so I missed a lot of Knicks-Hawks Game 4. But they come surging back. I watched the condensed highlight version game of it. They come storming back. A great performance from the Knicks offense, I thought they were much more engaged. The ball was not sticking with Jalen Brunson like we've seen in the past. And just a much better cohesive team effort from the Knicks in that one. I thought the ball was moving, a lot more guys involved. Jalen Brunson much more efficient, still didn't shoot it great, but did not nearly take nearly as many shots, didn't force nearly as much as we've seen in some of those earlier series games, which put the Knicks in some trouble. So that allowed them to attack. Karl-Anthony Towns 20, 10, and 10 with a triple-double. So we had that, and then the Magic go up 2-1 over the Pistons. We've got Game 4 tonight to see if the Pistons can try to even that one up going back to Detroit. I was just flat wrong about the Pistons. I thought their defense was going to overwhelm the Magic, but that has clearly not been the case, which has just been a little disappointing for me. Where has Jalen Duren been? I think the Magic have started to show the team that we anticipated they'd maybe be this season. We're now, didn't see it in the regular season, but we're now starting to see it in the playoffs. So they're a tough out, and they've given Detroit all that they can handle defensively. Detroit can't get anything going offensively. They're barely scoring over 90 points in this series. So it feels like a fight to 95. We'll see what happens down there in Orlando, see if Detroit can kind of fluster some of their role players, get that series tied up going back to Detroit. Otherwise, we could be looking at them and the Nuggets both staring at 3-1 holes with the potential 2 of our top 3 seeds on either conference potentially going down. So just a crazy, crazy weekend. That's going to about do it for me. I've got to get rolling here for some other stuff, for some other shows that we're working on here today. But before I do want to go, I want to leave you with our 3 playoff top picks before we go. Had a 2-1 weekend, which was not too bad. So we have now moved to 4-3 overall for the NBA playoffs. And I've got 3 picks for you here. My first pick, just talked about it. I'm just going zigzag theory that I think they're going to bounce back. I'm taking the Detroit Pistons -2.5 tonight against the Magic. I'm then going back to the well for me with the Denver Nuggets tonight against the Timberwolves. Again, no Ant, no Dante DiVincenzo. I'm taking the Nuggets minus 11.5. I think they're going to lay the lumber at home, and I think their game 6 is going to be the determining factor to see who wins that series now without Ant. But I anticipate a Nuggets rout here tonight. So going Nuggets minus 11.5. And then Tuesday night, going back home, I expect the San Antonio Spurs to handle their business. Wembanyama's back. The team's gelling. They're playing great. I expect them to take no prisoners and blow the Trailblazers out of the gym. And so I'm taking the Spurs minus 12.5. It's a pretty inflated line, but we're going to go Spurs 12.5, and that is on Tuesday night's game. So those are your top picks. Again, if you have joined me here, this has been Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. Thank you so much for being here on YouTube. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you leave me a comment below. Would love to hear from you guys, hear your thoughts on this weekend's playoff series. Here's some thoughts on the games here coming up this week. And as always, any and all feedback is greatly appreciated. So again, like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment. This has been Below the Rim Basketball. I'm your host, Quinn Carey. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great start to your week.